Hi guys, welcome to Divisor. In this tutorial we are going to show you how to find the greatest common divisor of any number, or best known as finding the GCD of any number. To begin, the first thing we want to do is to create our public static void main method, which will test our Java program. So here we come, we say psvm using this compiler and you click enter. Alright, now that we have our public static void main method, what we want to do next is to create our method, our sub method, which will test the conditions for which we pass the variable to. So here we come, we say public. You can also say private, but for this tutorial we will use public. So you say public static int and you give the name of your method, right? So here we got the name of the data type for which we try to test the conditions. So the next thing now we want to do is to give the name of our method. So we say get greatest common divisor, right? And we try to pass two parameters within the method. So the first one is int, and we say num1, and we say int num2. So these are the two parameters we are going to test our conditions for. These are the two parameters. Alright, so we say if, so we try to test our conditions now. So here we apply the conditions first. We say if num1 is less than 0 or num2 is less than 0, return -1. So the variables we will pass within the method for the parameters. So if the numbers is less than 0, then there is no need for us to find the greatest common divisor, right? So what happens is that if the numbers is less than 0, then the program should return -1. That will show that this is invalid, right? So here we also try to apply the conditions. We say if num1 is less than 0 or num2 is less than 0, then return -1, right? So if the both numbers are less than 0, then -1 will be returned for the conditions. You can also use and here, but in between here we use or. You can apply and, it also works. So both works depending on what you want to use, right? So we come next on the curly braces, we say int GCD, which is greatest common divisor, and we say equals 1, right? And the next thing now, we try to write our for loop that we try to iterate through the conditions. We say for int I equals 1, I is less than equals to num1, right? So we have two objects within the parameter. We have num1 and we have num2. So this is num1, and we say and I is less than equals to num2. Alright, then what happened? We say what? I plus plus. Alright, here we go. So we say if num1 modulo I equals 0, if num1 modulo I equals 0, and here should be and we have to test the two conditions. Num2 modulo I, or you can say %I, is equals to 0. What happens? We say GCD is equals to I. Here we go. Now the next thing we want to do is to return our GCD. So the data we declare, which is this GCD, we try to declare it here. We try to declare this variable here. So we have to return it now after the conditions has been tested. Then we come here, we say return GCD. Alright, here we go. So now that we have this, the next thing now we want to do is to pass some variables or numbers to the method here for which we declare. So here we come in our main method. We come in our main method here. We say system.out.println SOUT and we click enter. Now the next thing we want to do now is to call the name of this method. How to call the name of this method within our main method, right? So we come here. Remember, this is the sub method and this is the main method, right? So any other method that is below this method is called the sub method, right? So here we try to access our sub method within the main method. So here is the main method and this one is the sub method, right? So here we have to access the name of this method. By doing that, we come here, we call the name, we say get, and you see, so once you call the name of the method, it will be highlighted. It's highlighted now, and we try to pass some variables. So here we pass 25 and we try to pass 15, right? So because we have two parameters, so we have to pass for each of them. The first parameter is 25, the second one is 15. That's the value we pass, and we try to test our program. We come here, we run our program. Alright, so let's try to see what happens. Here we go. So you see, the greatest common divisor of our 25 and 15 is 5, right? So let's try to test again for another thing. Here we come, we say 500, and here we come, we say 25. Let's see what happens. So now we are trying to test the greatest common divisor of 525. Which numbers can divide 500 and can divide 25 with the greatest value of all, the divisor. So here we go. Okay, so 25 can divide 500 and 25 itself. That is the highest numbers that can divide both numbers. So let's try it for 100 too. And 25. So let's try for 125. Okay, so it's 25, right? So you see, the next thing now we want to do is to test these conditions here. What if the numbers we try is less than 0? Then it should return -1, right? So let's come here and we put minus, because minus any number is less than 0, right? So let's say -100 and -25, and we try to run this. Let's see if these conditions we try to apply. Alright, let's try again. Okay, here we go. It's good. Alright, so you can see it returned -1 because we tried to apply -100 and -25. So -100 and -25 is less than 0. So you see that we have the conditions then return to -1, right? Because it's what we set for the conditions. So this is how to find the greatest common divisor of any number. You can try to test it in your own way. Alright, so let's just go over it quickly before we move to our next tutorial. The first thing we did was we created our Java class and we applied our public static void main method. Here we try to build the method. So like I told you, you can use private or you can use public. It does not matter for this. And since we try to return the data value, we cannot use void here. In other conditions, we could use void, and we will show you in our upcoming tutorial. We will show you how you can use void and you don't have to apply the data type, right? But in this tutorial, we show you how to apply the data type. So always know that the data type for which you will try to apply or return is what you are going to declare, right? So if you want to return string here, you have to say let's say string, and here you cannot say -1 because -1 is not a string data type, right? So you have to apply the string data type. Either you can come here and you say return -1. So you try to put it in a double quote, then it shows like this is a string data type. Otherwise, you can say this and you say system.out.println and you say -1, right? It's the best way to say it, but I think if you want to use the return method is good, or if you want to use the system.out.println method is good. But if you want to pass a string data type, then you have to put it in your double quote, depending on if you want to change the data type, right? Alright, so let's go back. And also apply here. If you also want to return this, you cannot use this. You have to use return, and you put it like this one, and now it's good. There is no error anymore, just like what we did here. Okay, alright, let's try to quit what we did. Alright, so this is how to test the conditions of any greatest common divisors of both numbers. And thank you. Let's move to our next tutorial. If you also have questions, you can comment below, and don't forget to subscribe as we bring you more content. Now let's move to our next exercise, wherein we can apply the public void, and you can see how the differences is. Alright.